Um, so that really is our agriculture, but beyond just the production, it's making sure that that food system is sustaining people who need to eat in our state. And that it's helping produce value, for businesses and individuals in our state. So we're responsive in that way. Our second area of priority is strong Michigan communities. And it's not written for to say we're only gonna focus on rural, or we're only gonna focus on urban or suburban. It really is, what do communities need that we can deliver from MSU Extension? We do new county commissioner training, you all are familiar with that. We're increasingly looking at how we can adapt some of those tools to leaders at different levels of government. So what are we doing for township officials? What are we doing for municipal leadership? Some of those topics are gonna be the same no matter what level of government we're talking about. So we're teaching people about the Open Meetings Act and how to run a meeting effectively, how to make decisions, and how to advocate without making enemies, right? It's a really important skill that a lot of people get into government because or get into the public service because they have a cause they feel passionately about, but they need to learn how to work together with other people to make those visions happen. In addition to that, we're doing tourism education, we're doing leadership education, we're teaching people skills like facilitation. All of those things go into making strong communities. We're really interested in our third priority is healthy and empowered Michiganders, making sure that we're giving people the information and the skills that they need so that they can be as healthy as they can be. And in some cases, that means knowing more about their nutrition, their physical activity. In some cases, that means, having good emotional and mental well-being, learning techniques and skills like mindfulness, how to manage chronic diseases, and all the gamut of things that we can deliver. So we specifically deliver things for older adults, but they can be applicable for all populations. And healthy and empowered Michiganders is really important, and our focus is the entire lifespan. So it's gonna be different for youth than it is for adults and older adults. And the third area is making sure that we're being good stewards of our natural resources, including our water resources, and our Great Lakes environments. We are blessed as a state to have access to the world's 25% of the world's fresh water, right here surrounding us. But we also know we have inland lakes, inland streams. We want to make sure that these environments continue to sustain life and the people around them, and they continue to be assets that we all value for the state of Michigan. And beyond that, the terrestrial, the forest resources, the wildlife resources, we want to make sure that we're teaching people how they can care for those things. And we have programs that deal with all of that. We work hand in hand with other folks like Russ, who's here from the Conservation District. We have a forester, they talk a lot about how they can collaborate and work together. And so if Ross can't help someone, Julie Crick can be contacted. She's based out of Roscommon. And beyond that, Center for Lakes and Streams, Michigan Sea Grant, we're trying to make sure that people know about all of the resources that will help keep our state the beautiful place that it is for generations to come. And you may notice that among those four priority areas, there's nothing specific about youth. And that's because we feel that youth have to be part of all of these priorities, that their voice is important and should be incorporated, that they need to be considered and planned for and encouraged, and that we need to incorporate leadership from youth in all of those areas. So I know that you are well aware of our 4-H program. We had amazing participation in 2024 in our youth programs here in Alcona County. And that's both the education we do in classrooms with our nutrition education and programming, but also specifically our 4-H program. Stephanie Domke, who's our program coordinator, has done a tremendous job of continuing the tradition and building on the tradition of 4-H in Alcona County. And I think she's doing a wonderful job. She could not be here today because both she and Kelly Von Fintel, who's our support staff person, are at Exploration Days. We're really excited that we have a group of kids going to Exploration Days again this year. That's an opportunity where youth can go to Michigan State's campus and do some hands-on learning there. as a way to explore future careers, whether that leads them to that campus, to another campus, or another passion of theirs. But developing them in leadership and careers for the future. So we're very, very proud of the work that she's done. I think our numbers help us to understand, we reached almost 20% of the population of the county this year. And a lot of that was because of the work we did with youth in Alcona County. And so, if any of you have, I'm not gonna read the report to you, if any of you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. Again, well, here's one thing I didn't highlight. June 2020 is when I started my job, so this is a 5-year anniversary for me in this role. And I continue to wake up every day really excited to work with the staff, to do the work and to serve Northeast Michigan, and to bring resources that improve people's lives. And so thank you for that opportunity. And thank you to the voters of Alcona County who renewed our millage in 2024. Very excited that we're gonna continue and that we have funding through 2027 as a result of that. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you for sticking with us.
Oh, you're very welcome, very welcome.
Are you worried about this new tick getting further north, or what's?
Well, I'm not sure how quickly this tick situation will spread. I do know that we have entomologists and livestock specialists that are gonna be watching it really closely. It was identified through a recurring survey that happens. And I don't know, other than Berrien County, which is in the very corner of the state, I don't know where else it may be. And I don't know if at this point there's good information about where it goes, but we're definitely keeping an eye on that. There's myriad other pests and problems that we're keeping an eye on too. Spotted wing Drosophila has potential to have a problem with our fruit crops. The spotted lanternfly is really a nuisance and can affect trees. And we're also making sure that we're looking for, oh gosh, there was another one and now I can't remember. Not an entomologist by trade. But then there's the pests that are recurring and endemic. Just ticks in general are a challenge. I don't need to tell you all about ticks. Alcona County is the place where I first got a tick on me, so I have a very strong memory of that. Figuring out how we can help people respond to those challenges is gonna be a continual issue.
Any other questions? Well, thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Moving on to new business, so we'll do claims.
Let's see. I'd like to make a motion to approve pre-authorized claims and open claims presented for payment between June 4th of 25 and June 17th of 25 for check numbers 157-826 to 157-980, and e-checks 2648 to 2654 for a grand total of $438,390.10.
I will support.
Moved and supported.
I have a inquiry. Or question, or however you wanna look at it. Is there a way in this report that we get, that we could have I don't need the vendor number to aid particularly, to aid me in what it's gonna be. I would love to have the line item number, the 12-digit line item number, if that's possible, to substitute it in there. Because that,
I don't know that I can substitute it, but I can include it.
I
It'll look
Without
totally
like-
different than that.
mean, I
It
don't
won't look
want
anything
to
the
have
same.
issues or problems, but now, I don't care if it can just be added in with leaving the vendor number. I was trying to make,
You can still access the report when it's printed, when it's out for approval. You want to just copy that?
well,
Do you want,
You know what I'm saying, the report that the finance gets for approval?
Mhm.
That would have all the line items and all the stuff already on it, and every commissioner has right to
Every
look at that.
commissioner has to-
So do you want a hard copy of that?
I don't need it, well. I mean, I've got the first page, I got three, I wonder what those were. Well, I'm perplexed over the fact that we would send a $2.83 check to Hunt.
Oh, well, I can answer that one. Yeah, me.
Thank you, Madam Treasurer.
That would be the prior year's personal property millages that came through from the townships. And on some personal
that's that-
property taxes, and so
okay.
they, unfortunately,
From my perspective, it's a weird,
it is a very weird thing, and it's.
kind of jumps out at you. I mean, you know, going down Hunt.
Got any more? Challenge me, what do you got? I know, there was another one, it was like 47 cents. But it was for like a tax overpayment, they just round up and,
But that's why if I had the 12-digit number, I would easily be able to channel down into what fund it had come out of. And in what arena it came from. So I don't, it would just be a little helpful to me, but I'm happy to vote to approve these. Thank you. I know,
Okay.
I'm the only one that looks at them, but.
Well, it's not necessarily true, but
I was gonna say. finance committee, what's that?
There's questions about it.
because,
Maybe you all go and get them answered separately.
well,
they asked before
so,
we get here.
yeah, I usually, when I see something weird, I.
Well, you're not
send you
finding
that.
it.
But, yeah, but if you don't ever want access to that whole thing, go ahead. The report still says, it still says the Carolyn report. You just have to go in there and say go, and I'm perfectly fine with that.
Do roll call, please.
Okay. Roll call.
Johnston,
Yes.
Brady,
Yes,
Small,
Yes.
Yax,
Yes.
Brumman.
Yes,
it literally is called the Carolyn report.
you got it. Kate.
I'm not kidding. It's the same one that you've ran all these years. Heck yeah. I'll show you.
Why change a good thing?
Why you have a Dutch making assumption, it's good.
Oh, it's terrific for me. I love it. Region 9 Area Agency on Aging Draft Annual Reports. What is the expectations from us on this? Do we, oh, here's the thing we gotta sign, hey?
Um,
You guys want a chance to look this over until the
Yeah.
next meeting?
um,
More?
I thought it was interesting.
Well, first of all, I'll make a motion to acknowledge the receipt of the Region 9 Agency draft. Move to support it. Now go ahead and ask your questions or your comments.
I guess I'll refer these to Terry, because I know he's sits on that. The no wrong door policy, or I'm sorry, project. That indicates that it was a federal grant, but how much money was it and how is it going to be divided? Or filtered down to the individual counties?
I have to look that,
Okay,
look into that for you.
okay, thank you. Yeah. Under the meeting public comments under page 9. That's always in. We've been told. It is my understanding that we've been told. That you can't do a carryout meal from congregate service. And that is a problem, and home delivered meals is a problem also. They are costly, especially home delivered meals, because there's a cost of delivering it to the farthest corners of the county. And then the driver can be sitting there looking at the person or standing there And they say, oh, meatloaf, I don't like that, and it goes to the waste basket and drops it. They have the menus ahead of time. So they could call and say, please skip me this particular time. Or they're not home and they're not allowed to leave it. They have to see the person. So. And as I said, it's costly. You cannot charge for it. It's illegal to charge for the meal. You can ask for a donation, but you can't charge if they're 16 or above. So it's. Had they presented it, I would have had. And the individual. That's kind of the part that's unfair, because the individual that might be presenting it is governed and documented from a higher level, and they don't have a choice on much of it. So, but it was a very interesting report, and I appreciated it. You are, you need to receive it.
Any other questions, comments? Motion to receive the report. It's already on the table, sorry, my bad. Do we need to roll call this stuff?
No.
And all those in favor,
Aye.
all those opposed, motion carried.
I would like to ask that we add new business, Sarah.
Okay.
I appreciate Washington County's resolutions. And other than a name change, this really needs to be addressed, and I would like to see us, we are dealing with this at memory. At the subunit of memory. We have fought this for quite some time. They're just getting a little pushier about it now, and, it would not be a healthy thing. Especially for smaller units, for this to be privatized.
If I could just add to this, Carolyn. CMH's director wants to come to a meeting, probably would be the next meeting, and make a presentation about that. She has a resolution she wants to bring forward to the board, hopefully to sign. In regards to fees and that sort of thing, money. It's apparently there is another movement to privatize.
Yeah.
And it's a big.
And we've seen the waves of this move come over the years.
Yeah.
And I remember in the late 80s talking about this, and concerned and worried about it with Article 5 and with the old NIMSAS board. It's particularly not healthy for northern Michigan. And I don't think it would be healthy for southern part, for the more urban areas either. But, if I may, I would like to ask that be added to our agenda under new business.
For today? For right now?
Whenever you'd like to put it in, so.
Well, we're at new business right now. Do you wanna, it sounds like maybe we wait until we get a presentation.
If I could ask for us to wait until the director from CMH makes a presentation here.
Is it going to be focused on the PIHPs?
I'm assuming that it's going to be, she's going to be focusing on her area, which is the CMA mental health. I don't know that the individual thing. I know she has her own resolution that she wants to bring forward, which I don't know, I haven't.
Could you send us the resolution ahead of time, maybe, so you can,
It's being against privatization. We talked a little about that. So I think that's.
I think it's going to be somewhat like this. I don't know if it's going to be the same thing, but. You know,
rather than take the time during the meeting, if you can have it prepped before the meeting and ready to. I just, I have no problem with us doing it in 2 weeks.
I just think she might bring something different to the table. As far as wording,
We could send 2 different ones that were still along the same theme.
we could, but I would rather stay within our own area.
I have no problem. But if we could have it ahead of time, that would let us
I will attempt to
merge
get
it
that to you.
if we need to, or just totally go with hers, who knows? So,
So yeah, I guess put on new business for the next meeting.
Yeah.
This. Okay. That is it for new business then. Finance report, finance hasn't met. Going on 2 weeks here, I'm trying to carve out a little time to do that, do we have any need to move some money around right now, Cheryl? As a board,
No.
okay. You got anything, Dave?
At this time, there was one. Scott, did you have something?
I sent up over a couple of simple line item changes, but not nothing. No major changes from budget to budget.
It was, okay. Well, that's it for finance, personnel? Yeah, we're, I'll give you an update on the new position in the treasurer's office is that right now waiting on the union to schedule, the meetings for the, what's the name of this, not mediation. As soon as they let us know what the dates are gonna be, that's when we proceed, so. And that's it, for personnel. Treasurer's report?
Townships are, furiously working on their tax rolls, getting them ready for, preparation. We have. A few of the townships, haven't heard from a few of the townships, a few have come in completed with warrants. Fabulous. They have a call today, we'll be waiting on, I think we have 5 left that we haven't heard from, so we'll be waiting to hear from them. And we had, obviously, I think it was June, the 1st of June, our taxes went out, the 2,121, and we have been collecting a lot of taxes. We've been getting a lot of mail, a lot of money coming in to replenish that deficit that we had paid out. I had a communication with the auditors for some paperwork that they, generally what they do is send us paperwork, sign it for access to confirmation with bank code, with bank statement information, our debt, and also any lawsuit. With her signed and sent out this morning. Haven't heard anything else in regards to that, but obviously we're getting to the end and then finishing up the final work that needs to be done. And that's really all I have. Unless anybody has any questions, I need to look into it for you.
Look like it, thank you. Clerk's report.
I too received an email from the auditors requesting some further signed letters, any lawsuits that we have with attorneys or anything like that. In your communications, there was a Cherry Capital report for the month of May. The opioid litigation that's still pending, I believe this is in regards to Purdue Pharma, is in bankruptcy court right now. That's probably the only thing on that whole lawsuit. The county lawsuit, find my paper, not really anything to move into a closed session to discuss, but they are basically, our attorneys have requested dismissal and plaintiffs disagreed, so they're appealing that. Our attorneys have filed a motion, their motion to dismiss us as parties to the appeal is still pending, so nothing much to report there. Terry, I just gave them the agenda for Michigan Works, but I did print off the great big thick packet for you for your meeting.
Thank you.
And then you saw that resolution that came in late, and we're gonna add that to new business for the next time. We currently have a jury trial going on right now upstairs. This is on its 2nd day. I'm hoping that they finish it up today because I'm sure no one wants to come in tomorrow when we're closed. Lots of questionnaires that we had mailed out are coming back. We won't send out a second round of those until sometime mid-July. We met, Trina and myself met with Acrisure yesterday again, with a very lengthy meeting. But Denise Bear and Barb Brusky from the library, they met via Zoom, and then myself and Trina via Zoom, and then that lady, I can't think of her name right now, that's doing the handbook. Had more detailed questions from beginning to end, which are a lot of issues that I will bring to personnel. And then personnel, whatever you want to proceed with and bring to the board. She's of course going to submit a draft version. It was interesting, some of the discrepancies between what the library would do and what we would do, being for one that we're a county entity as well for government, local government, but they kind of changed a couple of their things to coincide with the county, so it was kind of nice. It was a good meeting for sure, got lots of good information out of it. I think most of what I'll discuss is probably for personnel, and then whatever you find necessary to bring to the next board meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much. Scott, sheriff's report.
Job, you want to put it on forward? Not probably. Maybe probably 50 cents.
I think it's more than that now, isn't it?
Right. I would say here as well. Well, just a few things to update today on, looks like it's long, but I'll keep it brief if I can. The Marine grant was approved that we talked about at the last meeting. It came in quite a bit lower than what we thought. I know we had a little bit of fear about it being high, it was not, it's very low. So the numbers are there. They've approved us for 4950, which our 25% would be 1650. And the 7900 or the 6600 that adds up to is supported by what I budgeted for the year. I was anticipating quite a bit more from that award. So the only issue with that is that the 1650 is going to come out of that budget, is going to be paid by us and not be reimbursed by the grant. So not anything real drastic there. Talk about other counties that have a much more robust Marine program. We're seeing them on the news squawking about this. They have quite a few people signed to that. I mentioned a child abuse case. I think the last time I was in here, a little bit of good news on that is the child's expected to survive. And we've tied up a lot of time and resources investigating it. I'm anticipating charges real shortly on it, but the child's going to survive. Unfortunately, it's going to have lifetime effects, probably up to and including blindness and some real serious disabilities it's going to have, but he's going to survive. Last week, interestingly enough, during the midweek, we had 2 OWI crashes in the morning before noon. And it was not residual drinking from the night before. Both these gentlemen crashed after drinking and smoking marijuana that morning. Both were injured quite badly, and one of them injured a local resident quite badly. So it's kind of an odd week. It's not odd to get drunk driving crashes. It's odd to get them in the morning, and it's odd to get one before 9 a.m. What happens? I had a complaint about the kiosk this week, and maybe some of you have heard, and maybe you did not. But the gentleman came to my office after being directed to complain about it, for which he said it's illegal to demand identification to come into a county building or a public building, for which it generally is. And I've expressed that before, that it's probably not appropriate to demand ID. A kiosk does not demand ID. But you don't really know that unless you get to it. You don't have to put your name in, you can still get in. But I agree with the gentleman. I think it's a little bit intrusive, and I've said this at other meetings and at our security meeting for the courthouse, that I'm not a real big fan of that machine anyways. And when I came over to look at the signage for that, unfortunately, we still got a mask sign up there that says lower your mask to have your temperature taken. That hasn't been in effect in 4 years maybe. So I took it down and got rid of it. So if you happen to see signs that are old or antiquated around here, do me a favor and take them down so they're not jumping down my throat about it. But anyways, he was okay about that, and he caught one of my signs at my office that was inappropriately worded, and we promptly took care of that too. So I appreciate the help on his part. having some issues at the Harrisville Harbor, and I don't know that any of you have heard yet, or you may hear about it. The harbor is not dredged very well right now, and they've got some sandbar issues, and they're having boats get stuck in there. And I can't have my very expensive patrol boat go down and tug them off sandbars. Some of these vessels are very expensive, and for my boat to go down there and tug them off the sandbar, I put my boat in jeopardy, my people in jeopardy, and the county's expenses in jeopardy, because if we damage one of these boats, we're on the hook for it. We, our insurance carrier advises against it. We do tow boats. We do tow boats in the event of an emergency, when life is in danger, or they're in risk of floating across the lake towards Canada. So we do that, but we don't do it for just a stuck boat. There has to be some life in jeopardy. Case in point, the one that was caught on the rocks up in Black River last year, where we did damage to our boat trying to save people. They were having a medical emergency on the boat while they were stuck on the rocks. So we do that for life, but we don't do it for property. And we're not a tow service. And the other part of that is there are salvage companies and tow companies that do that for a living, and far be it from county government to be infringing on their business. So if you do have any concerns or comments coming from the public about that, certainly direct them towards me, or you can reiterate what I just said. But that's our position. We're not yanking boats off the sand if there's not an emergency. It's just too dangerous for everybody. And there's other people who can do it. Proud to announce that this spring we had a fundraiser at our office, and I donated $100 to the Child Advocacy Center in Alpena. And I challenged my staff to meet that, and they did, and far exceeded it. They donated $290 on top of my $190. So that went to, and you may have saw all the pinwheels and things that were floating around here this spring. And it just reminded me, because they sent me the receipt back the other day, and I saw it, and I thought that was quite nice. They ponied up some pretty good money. A little bit of peer pressure, but we got the job done there. Taser project's moving along well. We've got instructors lined up, and I don't actually pick the roll out sometime in October. They're gonna arrive sometime in September, August or September. There's a training period, and they come in and help do some of the training and everything like that. I talked about maybe bringing someone to go over and showing you the headset and how that all works, and I still plan on doing that if you're interested. I'm gonna try it out first to make sure nobody's gonna get hurt or anything like that, but I think it should be pretty neat. We talked before about the 800 megahertz encryption of the radios that we're forced to do over the next few years. I put a grant into Homeland Security, and it looks like it's gonna be in pretty good shape to help us out with that. And I put in for 60,000, and it's broke down into 2 different fiscal years, $30,000 each, which is gonna real close to take care of my car fleet of radios. It doesn't take care of the portables that the guys carry on their side, but that's gonna take care of the mobiles in the car. So that's a huge look for us. That's almost half of them. And then before I mentioned that we are replacing the one out of general fund money this, like right now, because it's non-functioning right now, so it has to be taken care of right away. But if this grant comes through and replaces most or all of our fleet radios, that's a big lift for us. That's huge. Terry and I attended the Hunt special meeting last week on June 6th. Last week, or was that 2 weeks ago, Terry? 2 weeks ago now, wasn't it? Yeah. They introduced a new lieutenant for the team, and when I wrote my notes here, I guess I forgot to put his name. It doesn't come to memory right now. Do you remember, Commissioner Small? I don't either, but he does come highly recommended. He was down at Sting, which covers Iosco County, so I talked to a couple of the sheriffs in that district. He comes highly regarded. He was sergeant on Sting for quite some time. I think it's gonna be a good thing for the Hunt team, and he seems very ambitious, looking to fix a few things that were problems before, and I look forward to working with him. He drives through here every day, so I've invited him to stop in for coffee sometime, and he's got some pressure from the board to come talk to the board of commissioners here from time to time, and the other counties to give updates. So I look forward to that. Looking forward to working with him.
I think one of the big things about him being in Sting is he's familiar with Northern Michigan's operations, which I'm sure were a little bit different than Detroit. And that area.
Yeah, I think it sounds like he had some good ideas for enforcement, and some ideas that he was just gonna leave by the wayside. So some of the things that were done before didn't seem to be productive, or he didn't feel they were productive. So he's looking to change a little bit, and that's what I'd like to hear from him. Last week on June 12th, I went to the MIRMA Law Enforcement Advisory Committee, and it was a joint committee from UP sheriffs and chiefs and Lower Peninsula. It was one of the better meetings I've been to for anything, like as far as police policy and procedures, training, where we're at and where we'll be going at. It's it's a little bit higher up level of management and looking at your staff and getting them to be safely out there operating as police officers. We had a great legal update. The use of force is right on the cusp of everything right now, and there's a Felix versus Barnes case that's the headliner that we're watching because it has a lot to do with use of force. But the other one, which is more local, is the Sure case in Grand Rapids, which has been on the news, which was a fatal shooting after a traffic stop, and the suspect took the taser from the officer and he had to shoot to survive that encounter. That's all over the was all over the news. And what happened with that was not an acquittal and not a guilty, but a hung jury. And it was going to be 10-2 to find him not guilty of negligent homicide on the motorist on that. So we were very, very pleased with that. We were very pleased that the prosecutor in the county decided not to retry the case, nor did the attorney general decide to retry the case, even in the midst of huge political pressure in the Kent County and Grand Rapids area. That was in the law enforcement community, it was a justified use of force. I mean, when somebody gets your taser away from you, the chances of you surviving that encounter are very, very little. And we are taught that that's a deadly force situation for us. So that's what happened there. Quite honestly, I was a little uncomfortable with the conversation. The chief of Grand Rapids was sitting right next to me. So he didn't make any comments about the case or anything like that. And, there's still civil litigation. And he's got an employee that was fired over that whole program who just was more or less exonerated in the court system. So there's a lot going on with that. And fortunately, we haven't had to deal with that to this point. Is somebody in Northern Michigan is going to have to. There's a lot of talk about officer-involved shootings and who investigates them and how that all happens. The reason there's a lot of talk is because the colonel of the state police has told the prosecutors that they're not getting officer-involved shooting cases to review, that they're all going to the attorney generals. Some clarification on that is that they are not. State police officer-involved shootings will be going to the attorney generals, and locals can go to the local prosecutors. But I'll tell you, local prosecutors are hot because that was not. Local decisions are supposed to be made locally by local prosecutors on charging, even involving officer-involved shootings. They don't need to go to the state level. They should be reviewed locally. But a lot of talk on that subject. Anyways, it was a great meeting. We learned a lot. We also talked about autistic individuals and how to deal with those in police work and how to deal with them when they wander off. Some mistakes get made there too. And those mistakes are very, very costly when we screw up dealing with autistic people. And we talked a lot about use of force when it comes to hospitals and AIS homes. And those are mental health issues. And quite honestly, this AIS homes call us to come in there and restrain their individuals all the time. Guess what? That's an assault. Those people who are not wanting medical or mental treatment, unless they're under a court order, are free to refuse that treatment. And when they are restrained by law enforcement, it's considered an assault. But I will tell you, all over the state and all over the country, when people get out of line at the hospital or AIS homes, we get called, and it puts us in a heck of a spot. So, pretty interesting conversation. Last night we had the fire association meeting, and it's to reestablish a search and rescue program who's kind of got kicked by the wayside over the last few years. And it's kind of interesting that search and rescue is not needed as much as it used to be, and it's simply because of technology. With everybody carrying cell phones for the most part, we're able to track them and find them a lot easier than we used to. So that's helped out a ton. And I was talking to an officer who lives locally and works in Talbot City. He said, what they're finding down there is the parents are punishing their kids by taking their phones away. The kids run away. And guess what? You just took away the only method we had of finding that child. So there's an interesting conversation. I think it's great that the fire association is stepping up and trying to get that reestablished. And I offer all the resources that I have to help out with that. It's a good thing. It's not that it's been forgotten. It's just not been used a heck of a lot lately. But I guess that's also good that it's not. We got to prepare for that. If you haven't noticed, I've got a new young lady working for me, Brielle Susan Pettit. I've hired her as a part-time corrections officer. And I've talked before about this position and filling in behind my corrections officer, behind the clerk at the desk. And, talking about having to train them, and well, this girl's trained already. She came from Alpena County. She's a certified corrections officer. Her certification is still valid. So the state of Michigan recognizes her as being legit. We didn't know this trial was gonna go to the last minute. That's upstairs going right now. There's a male defendant in the trial and a female witness who are both in custody. So we are running back and forth every day for two inmates. One of which is a female. And God bless Brielle for stepping up and being here at short notice the last couple of days to help out with that. But she's spot on. It's really a breath of fresh air to have somebody come from the outside that knows what they're doing and not having to be told how to unhandcuff a subject, or how to handcuff them, or how to transport them, or do just the basics that we think of. So the corrections officer that I have is full time. He does Marine ORV on weekends, so he is not here some of the time in the jail. So I had to help train Brielle around here and, orient her to our building and everything like that. And I haven't trained a corrections officer in over 20 years, but it's been pleasant and it's been all right. And we've done a couple of transports together. I'm very confident that she'll do well. I've been jokingly telling people I think we found a unicorn, because trained corrections officers who are women, they're rare. They're very rare. It's great to have more females on the staff, because half the people we deal with are females. And having just males just opens you up for trouble. And she's doing very well. I guess that's about all I have. Anything else? Any questions?
Amazing for a former officer.
You know what, I've laid off in the last couple of weeks. I'll work on that.
Well, that's entertaining.
He threatens to give it back, so.
Look, they're digging. Oh, geez. Oh, please don't be back.
Someone involved in the child advocacy program. Please extend my appreciation.
I will. It's a great program, and whether you know it or not, the child advocacy program that's set up in Alpena started here in Alpena County. Doug Ellinger and Jim McGuire were very big in getting that initiated here with Dr. Fitzgerald at Alpena Health Center here in Lincoln. And it was relatively successful here, except for it wasn't used as frequently as it could be in the larger community. So they shifted up there. But the entire advocacy center was here, and Northern Michigan was using Lincoln as the advocacy center for a while until we moved up there. But those people were instrumental.
I provide the board with that information, the quarterly information.
Yeah. Right, on how much it gets used. You do, you give it to me too, yeah.
And Tom and other folks.
Yeah, and it's a quite a, there's protocols now set up for how to do these investigations. And part of that is following up, and prosecutors and investigating officers have to follow up with the advocacy center on where their cases are at or where they're not at. It's nice that it developed here. I'm proud of that project.
Okay, any more questions for Scott?
Questions on ICE? Demonstrates or anything?
Nope.
So the quick answer is that ICE or any other federal agency can operate in Alpena County without calling and telling the sheriff. They generally do tell us that they're going to be operating in Alpena County, sometimes with very little notice and sometimes with all kinds of notice. But as far as a formal, they have to come tell the sheriff they're going to be here, that doesn't exist. It's a misnomer by the extreme factions of the left and the right that think that has to happen. It does not, but they are, every federal agency that when it comes to Alpena County is very good about letting us know what they're doing, especially if it's something high risk and it may involve an escape or a gunfight or anything like that, because we're going to back up. So we work very closely with those agencies and they're very good about contacting us. ICE maybe has ever only been here once that I'm aware of. Customs and Border Patrol, folks are here all the time. We have an agreement with them, a collaborative agreement with them, and that's where our stone garden money comes from. They got an office in Alpena at the sheriff's office. They have office space there, and they have 2 agents stationed there that are here from time to time. So you may see the vehicles around. You may see them working in the field around here. Homeland Security's been here before. We've had Secret Service here helping us work on child pornography cases that were generated in our town. So they're here and they work with us very well. And they're generally very good about checking what's. Do they have to? No, and I'm not gonna stand here and pound like this if they come to our county and didn't check with me. They have jurisdiction in Alcona County, just like they do in the entire United States. But they do a very good job of checking in with us and keeping good communication there.
I sure remember the Marshals being here.
US Marshals, yeah. You probably would have known because they were probably booting doors. They were usually very aggressive. The ones that are tough are really the bond agents, you know, that's a lesser thought of group of bond agents. They do check in with us when they're in the area because they're probably out trying to make arrests. And boy, it doesn't seem right that these people are general citizens with had some training in a bond agency that they can go out and make arrests and they can search houses. And when you sign a bond paperwork, guaranteeing your return for court, you've signed away most of your rights to that. You have signed legal documents that say they're allowed to come to certain houses and places and seize your body, take it up for bond. And it's a dirty pool game, but you've signed the paperwork.
All right, well, thanks a lot.
No problem. Thank you.
Committee reports, we'll start with Craig today.
Okay. Well, for Parks and Rec, we did not meet, didn't have enough people, so we canceled that one. We did have a veterans meeting yesterday, so they are, let's see, they're close. I think they've got all their bids in and all the stuff for the pavilion. That should be starting in the next month, I would guess. There's a pavilion going on the back side of the building. And, they're looking at a new sidewalk that goes in. Once they get all that done, they'll get all the grade work, because I think they said they had somebody complained about the grass wasn't, they don't have, it hasn't been scaped yet, it's still. So they're waiting until they get that pavilion done, and then they'll get that all scaped out and little things. That was the only thing I had on those. I don't know if anybody else had, but we have the Cherry Capital report in here. I think that's still, you know, going as usual. I don't know if he's gonna come in and make it official, but I don't know if Doug has talked to the rest of us, but Doug is gonna be moving. They're headed back down south, and so he still wants to be a part of, you know, we appointed him as a chair. And I think he can still maintain that in a remote situation and deal with Cherry Capital for us, and we'll work with him as the committee. I don't think that's gonna be an issue, and he had, when he talked to me, and I said, I'm sure the board will be more than willing to continue that. And so I think it's gonna be fairly seamless. We'll still communicate, we'll do well, and he's gonna be part of it, so. But we wish him well, and his house is for sale, it's on go.
3.2.
3.2 million, I said. Well, it's a nice house, pretty nice. It was nice having meetings up there. So that's all I have.
Gary?
It was, NIPSCO. They're looking at budgets, and, I had a meeting with them. I did not make their regular meeting, due to updating. But they are looking at some budget cuts, and, I'm not sure how that's gonna play in quite. I'm hurrying, I'm trying, I'm trying.
No, I just,
And they are doing some charity. CMH, we've already talked about a little bit, I guess that resolution will probably be coming out, we'll try to get it to you at a time. TMS, Thunder Bay Transportation, we did an evaluation of the director, and we actually were doing it at the new Pace building. If you get a chance to get in there and take a look at that, it's pretty impressive.
Where's that? Where's that?
The next to Big Lots.
That's Secretary of
Yeah,
State.
yeah, it's for old people.
And it's almost done. They've still got some stuff. I understand they're not gonna be opening until 90 days after they get their final say, so they're ways, but it's just impressive. It's very impressive. Last thing is I did attend a Curtis Township meeting, and All Band was there, and they were announcing that they got a grant, and they are coming south out of Current and heading to Glenny, and they're gonna lay lines and lay into there. Pretty well all figured. I guess it's,
Did they were able to finish out that grant that they had for Glenny area? Oh, nice.
yeah, and it's very good. What I saw So far, it's pretty impressive. It's not just a line going into Glenny.
And that's
It's
the whole plan.
right, it's going into the suburbs and everything. It's quite extensive. Yeah, it's gonna cover. They have plans to head to Mankato too. Anyway, that should be it.
Dave, so were you on that webinar Friday?
No.
So they had a webinar on the BEAD grant program. Obviously with all the federal stuff, there's been rumors going around that might be or something. It doesn't look like that at all. They're just changing a lot of stuff, like just because it's now we have a new political administration, so they're changing and taking out some of the DEI stuff in that project. I think we have to reapply. Now it's gonna be a fast paced, we've already been accepted for application. But now we're going to have to reapply for it, but we get a lot of status that we can go through it quicker. They're offering people that haven't done that, to apply, but I don't know how it's gonna be done. It's all has to be done by September. I think we'll still be able, if we're all done that by December, we're gonna start.
Spring of the next year.
Yeah, but they're gonna start doing the pre-work before then, and next spring we'll be able to put, boots on the ground on that, but. So it wasn't as bad. I mean, there's been rumors, everybody's been asking me, and I don't know, you guys do, but it doesn't look like they're taking the money
I
away.
think the money's gonna stay, it's just.
Yes.
It's another year.
Timing and they're changing the way that you're gonna have to go about.
And for when we're invested in, that's only gonna help us, we didn't meet a lot of those.
Criteria
and stuff anyway.
Yes.
So it kind of really hurt us.
Could improve our chances, but
Yeah, I think we were in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
And I was at a Northern Michigan Association of Counties meeting. And they were talking there, the state is pretty much in a, I don't know what you call it, they've had signed 4 bills this year, the governor had signed, which is not very many, and right now between the Senate and the House, they're $300 million over what their revenue is coming in, so they have a lot of discussion going on and nothing's going on. So that we talked a lot about, discussed some of like, Alpena closing the wastewater plant. So now they're the septic tank companies, have nowhere to take it, and now they're gonna have to look at storing and look at applying that in the fields. So that's gonna be probably a mess here with our whole area in the next foreseeable
I don't know,
future.
it's been my area, for the last month, anybody drives by me out, they've been dumping for a month, and yeah, all that was right next to that, they're emptying the lagoons and air's fun.
I've had a couple of calls on it.
Yeah, they put a boat, I don't know,
Can they have to put that underground?
they're injecting it.
But it has to store for so long, that's,
No, it's been in the lagoon,
okay.
so they're dumping it right on, a couple million gallons is on next to me.
No, well, now after, I think in 2 weeks, they're closing.
Well, yeah, right.
To everyone from,
Correct, and so the haulers have to come up with their own storage. That's to sit for 30 days and cook, and then they can spread it, and they have to work it in within 24 hours. Interesting enough, I mean, I don't know if anyone wants to get into this, but,
sounds a little shitty.
yeah. Just you can pull back, so
He'll be here all week, folks.
amazing that I didn't realize that you can apply up to 60,000 gallons per acre. Of, yeah. So most of us have 1,000 to 1,500 gallon tanks. Oh, but 600 tank, I mean, you don't need a lot of land to, put this stuff on. I didn't realize that either. That was, Corey Upper told me that. Cause he did get some calls, Mike called him, cause they were putting millions of gallons next to us, and we were kind of wondering. And he said, oh, no, you can do this, and they have
Sounds
tested.
like so much.
It is. Yeah, seems like a lot to me.
but, anyways, Karen.
Kurt got an $83,000 grant to, if you recall, about 3 or 4 years ago, we purchased, a piece of property with acreage on the northwest corner of Cedar Lake. Excuse me. We sold the property, the part that we didn't have use for, but there is one comes under the road, it's called Jones Creek, and it goes on down to the lake. But it needs work on it, needs to be cleaned out and so on and so forth, and that's what we applied for this $83,000 grant. It's through the US Fish and Wildlife Series, and, we got the grant. We're in the process of jumping through numerous loopholes to have the right. We learned that EIN numbers can go inactive, and unless you find the right person at the IRS to reactivate your number. Apparently, any one of the people that could have done it, except the 10 people or so that Rex talked to, they all were like, but one individual happened to be a lady. Said, well, has anyone checked in the delinquent or not delinquent, but the deactivated? Well, of course, Rex didn't know. Nobody had said that. And she said, let me check. And there it was. So it was a very simple thing to reactivate it, but it has been, there's been a lot of loopholes that we've had to jump through or are in the process of jumping through. Harbor Town is, we had a, there are trees, and I do want to applaud Dave Hanson. He has been extremely helpful with a number of projects that are needing to be done or in the process of getting done or anything. I really appreciate the time he's given and the thoroughness with which he has approached things. I mean, I think we all know Dave does a heck of a good job, but in this particular area, with demonstrated stuff again, as it normally does. We are, interestingly enough, the survey had never been recorded. It was going back in 2001 and another one in 2002. Then it was recorded. It got recorded yesterday. John Oliver is supposed to be marking the corners to let us know if the trees are on our property or somebody else's property, and then they will get trimmed. They are leaning against the building, and it needs to be done. But yeah, jumping through a lot of holes and holes that's, yeah. ACCOA is working towards their dedication and their open house, which, as I mentioned last time, was July 18th. It begins at 1 o'clock Friday afternoon, and the open house will run until 4. And you certainly are all welcome. Bring your friends, your neighbors, and even those who don't want to come, bring them along. We've been doing interviews for the new CEO at Sunrise Center. Our current CEO leaves the 1st of September. And although she has agreed to contract for her services for another month or whatever, but she will be leaving. We've had some, we're going to one so far, but we have another one this afternoon, and we have some other candidates, so I don't want to say things are looking promising yet, but we are optimistic that they will. 211, we had a meeting yesterday in Saginaw. Moving forward, our annual meeting is in August. It is in Bay City. And things are moving forward there. Nothing major. And I attended my 2 chapter 4 meetings, and there are time and things to do.
Okay, thanks. Communications are in your packets, review at your leisure. We have our last round of public comment, 5 minutes, identify yourself within your township. Yes, ma'am?
Okay, Stephanie Aller, Paws Township. I did want to go back to the kiosk real quick. I think the whole concept when it started, I mean, for one, was with COVID and it was state mandate and it was great. But then it became where, once we weren't required to do the temperatures and I asked the questions and all that good stuff, it became more of a,
part of the security committee and the courts. Well, yes, the courts are required to have a security committee. But it doesn't mandate what the county building itself wants to do as far as all of the security measures. And correct me if I'm speaking, if I'm saying something
No,
incorrect.
sounds appropriate to me.
Okay, I just want to give a couple of examples of what the offices that are in this vicinity of the kiosk of the top floor go through. And the gentleman that went over to the sheriff's department to make his verbal complaint was physically screaming at one of my employees to where it was so loud it drew a couple of employees out of the treasurer's office as well. So now we have a couple offices out there trying to make sure that, you know, everyone's okay. And he was borderline like disturbing the peace as far as I'm concerned. He was totally obnoxious about it, totally handled it horribly. I mean, if he had an opinion to make, he could have voiced it way different. That was so inappropriate. That's just an example. Last week it was someone that was a retired fire marshal, I guess. I don't know what he was retired from the fire department, told us that it was a fire hazard, that it was a safety flight risk, that when people are panicking and trying to get out of burning fire building, they're not seeing that little green push the button here thing rather than the pull the alarm on the top part of it. Another example, they're banging at the doors because they can't get in. We're one of the few offices that have a copier in our office, so we have to go to the copy room. So we visit, we visibly see these people standing there, and a lot of times they are elderly and they're just standing there staring in the doors because they don't know how to get into the building. I think it should be considered that, for the concept when it began and the purposes sounded and seemed great. However, hindsight, going through all of this, banging on the windows outside of our office doors, on the courthouse lawn, because they can't get in the building. A gentleman this week, his complaint was that it was ridiculous. How could we possibly have the elderly trying to maneuver that machine to get in the building, and how ridiculous it was? And this is just constant. So I just want you to take that into consideration to what side we're seeing from the building as far as the kiosk is concerned.
How often does this happen a week?
Almost every day.
Day.
Every day.
And if I may, Carolyn brought me Greenwood Township, but,
Yeah.
I'm not in the building all the time, but I am some. I would say 2 to 3 times a week, I walk up those stairs and somebody is just standing in front of it, like, the hell do I do here? Or they're standing looking in, they don't know. They don't know, and so you stop, you go out to, may I help you, please? Yeah, I'm trying to get in, I need to go to the clerk, the treasurer's office, or register of deeds or whatever. And they just, I think some of them forget why they're coming.
Well,
And overloaded.
A couple of times I've actually had some of them have to tell me that they're illiterate, and they might not want to state that to the public that they can't read.
I would like to go back to, your comment regarding the man who was rude. I'll just leave it at that. I'm emotional about this, I'm sorry, dude. Every one of the 5 of us has an obligation to every employee in this building. I have on 2 occasions now over the years interrupted someone who was being obnoxious and said, this staff does not have to listen to you. Please leave the building, come back when you can be civil with them, and they will be happy to help you with whatever it is you want done. We owe it to the staff to interrupt and intercede when that type of thing is going on. And I would hope that the 4 of you would take that seriously and do that when you see any one of our staff people being harassed, being maybe not openly threatened, but being accosted to that in a manner that is not what we want, it's not what I want in this building. They're dedicated, they've given a lot of time. And they don't deserve that, and the only other thing, if you come upon it, the only other thing that's gonna salvage it is if you have the intestinal fortitude to step in and say, excuse me, this is not acceptable. Either change your tone or leave the building. It's pretty simple to do. It's easy to walk away and just pretend or turn and go back down the steps and pretend you never heard or never saw it. That is you and good. So I ask of you, as fellow commissioners, to protect and respect all of our employees. I will get off my soapbox.
I can make a suggestion, we have a committee in place before we make the jump, let's refer to the security committee.
We've already talked with this. Can I? Sure.
If you guys got a recommendation now, you think, or?
For public comments, Sheriff Stevenson from Hollis Township. The security committee has made the recommendation, and we've read that recommendation maybe has not got back to the full board yet, but we have made a recommendation to remove the kiosk and we've proposed an alternative solution. That kiosk was at the recommendation of the security committee way back during COVID. But the final decision has been this board. It's not a court decision, and that thing has not been dictated by the court. I think we're confusing that a little bit with the guns and the laws. The judge puts, the rules the judge puts out over top of the courthouse portion of the building, because there's some distinguishment between courthouse and county building. But anyways, the recommendation of the safety committee or the courthouse security committee has been to remove the kiosk some time ago. So that was the recommendation, and when we said we were looking at, having a metal detector and an officer at the entrance instead. That's where the courts are leaning towards. They're not mandating it yet. But there's other counties that are having it, and that's probably, to be quite honest with you, Carol Brumman gives great points about stepping in. But God bless you folks are citizens. Nobody knows your county commissioners by face for the most part when they come in. And to respect your position as a county commissioner, I wouldn't count on that. If you try to toss somebody out of here, they're not gonna respect that position. They may or may not, if they recognize you, but they may or may not. And to put yourself in jeopardy with a person who is out of control or irate, that's hard to ask of me. I have to ask my people to do that every single day, but they have the training and the ability to do that.
Someone made a recommendation to me, and I said, well, that's interesting. They said, if this is so court orchestrated, why don't we let the court people come in the south entrance, put it down there, and then put a wall type of thing or whatever between where the court now, where the court stuff stops and most of the rest of it. I thought, I never watched.
There's discussion of the same thing in every county building and courthouse in Michigan. To be quite honest with you, the distinguishment between the general public knowing what is county business and what is court business, they don't know. And they don't care. And it's really silly to try to split hairs on what's what. The judge will tell you, and she probably is correct, that because her court staff use the entire building, including the restrooms, sure, she's got some control over that. But the courthouse security committee doesn't make decisions about kiosks or about any other rules. We give recommendations to the board of commissioners here. Now, the judge herself can make different rules, but we only give recommendations to the board of commissioners.
Is the removal of the kiosk contingent on the metal detector plan or
No,
not?
you're the board of commissioners, and it's your building, you do whatever you want.
The key question is, who is gonna be the most upset when it happens? That's what I want.
When what?
If the board commissioner votes to eliminate the kiosk, who's the first person that's gonna come through the door? Complaining that we shouldn't have done that
Yeah, I don't know.
within this building.
Why don't we ask who would be happiest?
Well,
You just make a motion and find out. So I would make that motion if you don't mind about the comment that we remove the kiosk.
well, Robert hasn't been around here for the last 10 minutes, so.
Okay.
I could do it, but I'll yield.
So are you the chair of the security committee?
Yeah.
So if the security committee has said that their recommendation is to remove them, based on that, I would make a motion that we remove the kiosk immediately from the building,
Based upon.
based on their recommendation to the
I
security
will
committee.
support that.
For comment, that equals unlocking all doors and
Well,
full access all the way around?
and I don't.
Or
think-
just the door where the kiosk is?
Well, the main door, these doors would not be, so the public entrance would be open and
Correct.
the upstairs public entrance, so
Correct.
the employee would not. And probably the south,
So this main door down here off this parking lot
Yeah.
is unlocked all day long and the one upstairs.
But for security reasons, then anyone can come in, so we have obligations to have some safeguards for our employees?
Well, my comment would be, it's good to take it out of there, but the other step is though that you're recommending to have the security person there, right?
The recommendation of the security committee was to buy a metal detector and staff it with part-time employees that are security guards or Walmart greeters. And those people are the ones that when people get out of hand can ask people to leave or have the authority to do that. And maybe some training and ability to do it.
So
Does
you're-
the committee run cost on that?
Yes, I have.
And is that,
And I've submitted to the personnel committee several weeks ago. So we have. I also attended a MIRMA meeting where they spoke about courthouse and facility security. And your concerns about several entrances being open is valid. They recommend only having limited access. And the recommendation of the committee that we spoke about when we were talking about this is to limit the upstairs entrance. And if we have somebody staffing that entrance, they would certainly come down and let people in this one if they saw them on a camera, because we have to have ADA accessible to the downstairs. So this is still a public entrance, but we'd have to have somebody run down to do it. I think you've all been here around enough to know that we don't get overwhelmed with people coming through the doors except for when the taxes are due and when it's jury duty. So the idea of saying, well, I gotta step downstairs real quick, I gotta leave, not a big issue. So you can staff it with one person at one main entrance. Don't have to have a metal detector down here. With a wand is probably all you would need if you wanted to go that route to come down and check them in.
So I think it's fair to assume that the main, stumbling block to going ahead and open those doors was to initiate and, execute having a guard,
What?
a guard at the door.
Yeah.
That would be the main hangup, is the financial burden, not burden, whatever, you know what I'm saying, it's like, well,
Yeah, and I gave a couple of different routes that we could travel on that as far as personnel. And
so just to be clear, if we move ahead on a motion right now, it would just be unlocking this downstairs door and that door with no other measures.
Correct.
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I did. No, it doesn't preclude us from looking into it.
No, absolutely not, I just wanted to be sure that's what we're talking about.
I guess.
They're building.
and Scott, that's not state man, that's not required of the courts yet to have, I mean,
I'm more.
that's just options that you're looking into.
Should be.
Well, I'm gonna call.
I guess my only comment is to take it out without doing the next recommendation. I'm a little bit leery of that. I would like to see security of the courthouse. I'm kind of a little stickler about security and that sort of thing. I think you should try to protect them to the max. I never felt the system was adequate enough. I am kind of a push and I can talk to everybody about it. Of having a guard like some other counties have had. Financing it, I don't know those answers, but I'm gonna make an amendment to your motion that, if we go forward with this, that we, also hire a guard and put a metal detector up the door.
I withdraw my support then.
Well, you gotta get support for that.
I'll support that.
So we have amendment to the motion in a weird scenario in the first place. But, okay, so,
Screw y'all over. I'm waiting for my opportunity.
No, sit here, you gotta finish this. You can't.
so there's, no more discussion.
Vote on the amendment.
So vote on the amendment, all those or roll call.
Before we do that, do we want to table?
I mean, that's what I would like to do.
I'll also move to table.
But I do it, okay, I mean, I'll second the table if any of this is appropriate or whatever. But, you know, I do understand the frustrations, but there's some stuff that's gotta happen. In between, so I guess wake up call, commissioners, let's make this a priority between now and the next meeting. Of what the steps to take to make that happen, so we can have the doors open. And make a final decision on that, and we'll table it until, the next meeting on the second.
Do we have to?
I will be here in a second.
And
Yeah, I seconded it, so motion's on the table, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries, Carolyn absent.
Okay.
Commissioners, additional comments, concerns?
Okay. Public comment.
I don't think so, there's no other public comment, right? Okay. Commissioners, additional comments, concerns? We'll adjourn the meeting until July 2nd.
Sean did here, and he's got all kinds of information, and something, and I was just wondering.
Go ahead, hit that, hit the button on the.
Yeah.
Phone, please.
Oh,
He's jumping right.